To that end, there's obviously been a lot of criticism of one of the big concerns with this civil case that just ended in New York, that this verdict that we're
just half over.
Yeah, I guess
it's just half over.
It's half over.
Yeah.
The verdict, the jury reached their fact finding, but the judge will have to decide on what actually happens from there, as we discussed later on, really at the end of the summer. But one of the big concerns with this whole case in the first place was the Attorney General, Letitia James. She's a Democrat, obviously, in New York, and she had made her political motivations very clear in when she was running.
Sure.
And so one of the big concerns was that she was going to use her political office to, initially she wanted to dissolve the NRA. That obviously got removed by the judge as a potential remedy for this situation because it was outside of the interests of the NRA members. I assume you agree with that. Shutting down the NRA was not.
That was one of the reasons that I wanted to get on the board. I was well aware of what she was campaigning on. I knew that she had quite a bit of momentum behind her. I mean, she was the Democratic nominee, and what she said gave me great concern. And when we look at how she has proceeded on this, while I know that they tried to use those comments by her to try to derail her prosecution. People usually do that when the facts aren't with them. When they say they're just picking on me.
And to be fair, the judge did also rule against using that as a reason to dismiss the case altogether. Letitia James' comments.
He took that remedy that she wanted away from her because the judge said he did not want to punish the membership for the sins of the leadership. And I agree with the judge on that. So then she asked to appoint a special master, a monitor over the finances. And honestly, I think NRA needs that.
Do you have concerns about how that might also be used politically, potentially? If you give somebody that much power over the organization with
the judge is the check
which
on
the
the
AG
power.
wants.
Yeah.
Okay.
The judge is a check on the special master's power. If the special master says, no, you can't do that, then we go have a hearing and argue about it. If he says, yes, I want this done, and he's outside his lane, I think his lane should be limited to making sure that nobody's converting assets to their own advantage, that no board members are getting paid out of the coffers, that it's all being run in a business-like, well-run organization, and we're trying to save the thing. But he would not be able to go into, for example, ILA and start making decisions on who gets endorsed or who doesn't, or who gets a check and who doesn't. He wouldn't be down in the weeds that far. And ILA is a separate entity too. So I think he would just be looking at NRA and the finances of it, and the judge will define the parameters of his service in that position.
Okay. So you're putting a lot of faith in the judge in this scenario, I guess.
I don't think we have much choice. I don't think these old dogs are going to learn.
Well, I guess that gets to my next point here. You're running for the board again. You have 3 other people. One of them is Rocky Marshall, who's been on the show before. It was another whistleblower identified by the jury as a whistleblower in this case. How are you going to go about trying to make progress if you do get elected within the board that currently exists? There's obviously been a lot of criticism of you agreeing to testify for the AG in this case. What, how are you going to make progress? How do you respond to those critiques, and how are you going to try and convince people to go along with what you want to do?
I hope that they will see the realities that are facing them at this time. One of the biggest problems we have in the way the board operates today is that they hide the real financial information from the majority of the board members. If you go to a finance committee meeting, when they get to the important slides in the PowerPoint, they're going flip, 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 flip so fast you can't write anything down. You can't even understand what's in the slide. And if they would start to tell the board members the truth about the finances, which I do not believe they have done to date, then perhaps the board would get the initiative going, because they'd say, oh my God, this is it. I got to do something. And a lot of them, they really like being on the board. And if they want to keep doing it, they've got to make sure that the organization continues. I think that, you're asking me a lot of things that I'm not Gene Dixon. I'm not Gene Dixon. I can't look at a crystal ball. A lot of it's going to depend on what the others choose to do. If Charles Cotton and Marianne Hammer don't change their stripes, it's just going to be more of the same. So that is not a good recipe for them in court.
What's your response to the idea that you shouldn't have testified for the AG, given some of these critiques that you agreed with earlier on?
I didn't have a choice. They subpoenaed me. I have to respond to the subpoena. I can't be like Carolyn Meadows and destroy evidence. That's not what we do as a judge.
President of the NRA.
Yeah. She admitted it in both trials that she knew there was a preservation, and she shredded and burned everything. And she said it with a little smile on her face in this court.
Well, here's the other thing about this sort of limbo that the NRA is in right now between phases of this trial, right? We have a verdict that says the NRA didn't safeguard its charitable assets, that its the former face of the organization, the person who built it in large part into what it became, basically stole money from it. Essentially, that's what they did.
They did. And I think if you look at the numbers, and in my mind, I think in my 30 years, I think they stole over $500 million. It's only $25 million a year.
Well,
right. That's
obviously that's outside of what was in the trial. So
right. It was.
I can't speak to that, but but yes, obviously he's been accused of doing a lot more than what was at issue in the specific trial. I would certainly give you that much, but one of the things that strikes me about this is you have this really bad result from the jury for the organization. But you have this months-long limbo where we're not sure if the people who are currently running the organization are going to still be there after July or not. I mean, it sure seems like there's a lot of reason why the judge would appoint these monitors that you've discussed, and that could certainly happen. But in the meantime, isn't it going to be difficult to find people who want to come into the NRA and work on you? I could be stuck working with the people who are there right now, and at this very vital moment where the NRA has traditionally been a big workhorse for pro-gun candidates especially in federal elections, and we're going into a very major one here. So how are you viewing all of that, and what do you?
I think that their grasp and their reach in this election cycle is going to be just a fraction of what they once had. They've lost significant credibility with the politicians themselves. They've lost credibility. They've destroyed the brand with the membership. That's why the membership's going down. They're sick and tired of hearing about $250,000 in suits or $7,000 in airplane rides for nieces, $7,000 an hour for nieces. And, that's probably why they're not renewing. And so I think if they're going to recover, they have to make a clean breast of it and basically start with a new crew, which they have no intention of doing. It's obvious to me that the fix was in, and they were trying to set up so that Mr. President or someone close to him could be the next EVP. That's why they got rid of the head of general operations, because he would have replaced Wayne, and they got rid of him, and they put a sycophant in there that, they can control.
Andrew Rolandum is who you're referring to there.
Yeah. He's not qualified. He's not qualified for the job.
But he hasn't run a business. But I guess that's the thing. Like, is anyone going to come into the NRA who would be qualified for that job from outside right now, with this potential that the judge could appoint a monitor that could get rid of them as soon as they take office? You see what I'm saying?
Sure. Absolutely. And, that's why they keep looking inside, because that's the only place they can find someone loyal.